Vanished bells. An investigation. The bells disappeared in 1914. And to everyone, the answer seemed obvious. War needs metal, and bells are bronze. I began with this version too, because it sounds too logical to be false. But the deeper I delved into the documents, the faster this logic began to crack. It wasn't just that the bells were removed en masse. It was how it was done. If the goal had been to obtain raw materials urgently, they would have acted brutally and quickly. In practice, however, bells across Europe were lowered carefully, secured, described, and transported whole. This occurred with startling consistency across different countries, even those at war with each other. France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy. Different authorities, different languages, but the same handwriting and almost synchronous orders. This alone was strange. War rarely produces such uniform action across both sides of the front simultaneously. Then, I stumbled upon the first anomaly, after which the metal scrap story began to fall apart completely. The inventory of silence. The bells were not melted down immediately. They were stockpiled. In municipal archives and military photographs, the same motif repeated. Open fields, nearby railway tracks, and rows of bells lined up neatly, sometimes on wooden supports, as if in a warehouse. They did not look like a pile of scrap. This was an organized inventory. Then a question arose that could no longer be ignored. If they were truly taken for bronze, why waste effort on careful transportation only to leave everything under the open sky, whole and untouched? Why number something you intend to destroy? A junkyard does not need catalogs. After that, the silence began, not in terms of sound, but in terms of the trail. The war ended. Europe began to rebuild, but in a vast number of places, the bells did not return. There were no clear pan-European replacement programs, no coherent audits, no final act to this story. Documents cut off as if someone had torn out the last chapter. Removed, transported, stacked, and then a void. This doesn't look like ordinary wartime chaos. States know how to count metal. They keep records of resources, especially in a total war. But here, the narrative stopped mid-sentence. There's no confirmation of smelting, no corresponding output from foundries, no report to close the case. Infrastructure, not raw material. I stopped asking why they were taken and started asking, if this was only about metal, why weren't they returned? Why does their treatment look more like decommissioning infrastructure than mining raw materials? When I stopped trusting official phrasing and looked for physical traces, the tone changed. Photography is stubborn. The first image came from a regional archive in Central Europe, a field, rows of bells, each standing upright, undamaged. I thought it was an isolated incident, but the more I searched, the more I found the same scene in different places and years. Observation. Bells were kept near sorting stations or military depots, but almost never inside foundries. Logistics. Scrap is crushed and sorted by weight. These bells remained whole, with visible foundry marks and city names. The discrepancy. Pre-war registries confirmed the removal, but industrial reports from the war years show a gaping hole. The massive volumes of bronze supposedly harvested do not appear in the production logs for shell casings or artillery components. The acoustic network. To get closer to the answer, I had to look at the bells as engineering objects. A large bell is a precision acoustic instrument tuned to a complex profile of overtones. In the 19th century, bell founding was treated as an applied science. If this was a system, the location was as vital as the object. Bell towers were positioned so that sound traveled into open spaces, with hearing radii overlapping with neighboring towers. Sources describe bells as regulators of life. They didn't just tell time, they governed the quality of the air. While usually dismissed as superstition, the physics says otherwise. Low-frequency resonance can travel great distances. Vibration affects materials and biological systems. Synchronization. A network of tuned bells creates a continuous vibrational field. In 1914, the priority was given to large, old, low-frequency bells. If it were just about weight, it would be faster to melt whatever was closest. Instead, they were moved whole, as if the shape was as important as the material. The hypothesis emerged. The bells were part of an acoustic infrastructure that synchronized cities. Their removal was not a collection of metal, but the dismantling of a working mechanism. The replacement of rhythm. When the bells vanished, life continued, but the rhythm disappeared. The background frequency that held a community in a shared sense of time was gone. I compared cities before and after 1914. Pre-war, towers dominate the horizon. Squares radiate outward from the sound center. Post-war, the same towers stand empty. They are not destroyed, but sealed. What replaced the silence? Municipal documents from the 1920s show a surge in mechanical clocks, sirens, and factory whistles. Time became an external command, a sharp, piercing signal rather than a resonant, internal pulse. Feature pre. 1914 Acoustic Environment Post. 1914 Acoustic Environment Source. Resonant bronze, natural vibration, mechanical/electric, artificial signal, nature soft, harmonic, low frequency sharp, piercing, high frequency effect. Shared community synchronization. External command/regimentation work. Natural cycle shift work. Night shifts, rigid schedules. The symbol trap. After the war, facades and monuments were restored, but the bell system was allowed to fade away. To justify this, bells were repackaged in the public consciousness. They were no longer described as working infrastructure, but as cultural attributes or religious symbols. Once something is a symbol, its loss is emotional, not functional. You don't have to explain why a symbol isn't working. The science of environmental vibration was fragmented into separate niches: entertainment, noise control, or abstract physics. The idea that acoustic harmony could be an environmental mechanism was simply deleted from the world map. The final thought: the bells might have disappeared not because they were obsolete, but because they didn't fit the world being built after 1914. The world became louder but less cohesive if an entire layer of working infrastructure can be removed, stockpiled, and then erased from memory, leaving only empty towers and a convenient scrap metal story. What else around us is a system that we mistake for mere background? What other mechanisms are we living inside of, unaware of how they were meant to function or who benefits from our forgetting?